habitation desolate with them. At the noise of the talking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cities is heard among the nations.
Hold your hand there and go back to Isaiah chapter 45. Actually 44. I'm going to back us up to verse 24 in chapter 44. This is what the Lord says, your Redeemer, who formed you in the womb. I am the Lord, who has made all things, who alone stretches out the heavens, who spread out the earth by myself, who foils the signs of the prophets and makes fools of diviners, who overthrows the learning of the wise and turns it into nonsense, who carries out the words of his servants and fulfills the predictions of his messengers, who says of Jerusalem, it shall be inhabited. Of the towns of Judah, they shall be built out of their ruins. I will restore them. Who says to the watery deep, be dry, and I will dry up your streams. Who said to Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and will accomplish what I please. He will say of Jerusalem, let it be rebuilt, and of the temple, let the foundations be laid. This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to sue nations before him, to strip kings of their armor, to open doors before him, so that the gates cannot be shut. I will go before you and will level mountains. I will break down the gates of bronze and cut the bars of iron. I will give you treasuries out of darkness, riches stored up in secret place, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summoned you by name. Now, if we go back that passage, we said, who's going to accomplish this? And here we have a name.
Yep.
And it's talking about Babylon again, and it's talking about its fall. It's talking about Jerusalem going to be rebuilt. It's going to be inhabited. They're going to return. All the things that we see over and over and over and over again in Jeremiah, we picking up here in Isaiah. And so we look at this. Verse 4 there in chapter 45. I stopped at 3, I think. For the sake of Jacob, my servant, of Israel, my chosen, I summon you by name. For the sake of Israel, God has placed a name that they may know. Now, there are different things of which people go and they try to make some of these kings one and the same and two, but this was the conquering kingdoms that are coming in. There's two prominent, the Persians and the Medes. Darius was a Mede, Cyrus Persian. Makes perfect sense if you look at what it's going down here. And Cyrus is probably the military, and Darius is the bigger, so he takes the, I don't know what you'd call the ruling part of it, probably more. And so when Israel in Babylon, in captivity, sees this army around them, they have the prophecy of Jeremiah for 70 years. They have the prophecy of Isaiah saying, when you see this out here, you know you're short. Here you go. Yeah. Don't stumble. Be like the he goats that lead the flock, as we read last week, I believe it was. It just keeps on going, but this is repeated so many times within the Bible about these circumstances, about these times. We can go back to Daniel and look up a lot of the similar things, and we can spend a long time. We won't get it very far. And so I hope everybody is pretty well thorough. I'll try not to leave too much open stuff to fill in, but it's in here. And there's a lot of it in here. We come back to this passage here. He's going to chase the the Babylon from their land in a moment, in an instant. Short period of time. It's going to happen quick. When that army gets there and sets up and gets ready to go, we'll see some more things here about the particulars of the fall of Babylon. But this and this, but what I really want to look at down here in another place is in Revelation, it says in 1 hour. Here it says in an instant. And in the overall course of time, an hour is like an instant to see something that big fall. And so a very short period of time. And that's in what we just read in verse 44. And down in verse 46, the sound of Babylon's capture, the earth will tremble. Its cry will resound amongst the nations. And so it's going to fall and it's going to be reported. It's going to astonish the people of the world. When it fell back then, it was a cry that would resound and would be heard around the world. Keep in mind, we're going to see something similar when we get in Revelation 18. You know, and then gets to be even bigger in a certain regard. That there's a lot about these prophecies here in Jeremiah that spans prior books, following books, and all the way up to the time of the end. You know, most people say, well, Babylon's only mentioned in 17 and 18, chapter 17 and 18 of the book of Revelation. Well, it starts in chapter 14. There's one, it's used once, but it's obviously there before that, because that place is set up along with the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Satan as they do their destruction. Has to be. It's part of it. They're part of what's going to cause it to fall. And when you look at 17, it talks about how God orchestrates its fall. And you see here in this that God orchestrated the fall the first time. He's the one that brought them. Babylon didn't fall because man thought it would fall. Babylon fell because God said, go get them. I'm with you. And I'll see that it happens because of what they did to my inheritance. And so there's things that will come all the way in chapter 52 that is, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but just know that this stuff is all kind of interrelated as we get here and we see these prophecies on this. I can't imagine what the world was like back then when it fell. But keep in mind, it led into 3 more one world governments in a very tight succession. Now, there was years between some of them, as the Bible often happens. But what we're going to see it in the end is going to be a combination of all those kingdoms, because Babylon's the head of the statue and Rome was the feet of the statue. Babylon brought about all these things and set them all up and was the brains behind the situation of wheel, because the head controls the feet, and Roman Empire crucified Christ on a cross. And so you look at the evil that comes out of these things in that regard and expect the persecution when you see this in the future, because it's built into the system. And what we're seeing going on today within much of the world, within much of our own country, is leading straight in some of these things. So, you know, the thing here is to be open-minded a little bit. Any questions, other places? Anybody got any rabbits they want to chase before we go on to chapter 51? Dave? Oh man, I don't want to leave him out. I'm not looking at this. So.
How far do you want to read 51?
You ready to jump on 51?
Okay.
I'm saying, how far do you want to read?
Yeah, how far you want to go? I'll read it.
Now let's read down through 8.
Okay. chapter 51, Jeremiah. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will stir up the spirit of a destroyer against Babylon, against the inhabitants of Leb Kamai. And I will send to Babylon winnowers, and I shall winnow her, and they shall empty her land. And when they come against her from every side on that day of trouble, let not the archer bend his bow, and let him not stand up in his armor. Spare not her young men, devote to destruction all her army. They shall fall down slain in the land of the Chaldeans, and wounded in her streets. For Israel and Judah have not been forsaken by their God, the Lord of hosts, but the land of the Chaldeans is full of guilt against the Holy One of Israel. Flee from the midst of Babylon, let everyone save his life. Be not cut off in her punishment, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance, the repayment he is rendering her. Babylon was a golden cup in the Lord's hand, making all the earth drunken. The nations drank of her wine, therefore the nations went mad. Suddenly, Babylon has fallen and been broken. Wail for her, take balm for her pain. Perhaps she may be healed.
You would read one more verse. Sorry about
We would have healed Babylon, but she was not healed. Forsake her, and let us go each to his own country, for her judgment has reached up to heaven and has been lifted up even to the skies.
Okay. Anything different?
It's talking about the fall of Babylon.
And it's the Lord's vengeance. And the idea that Babylon was a gold cup in the Lord's hand. What's that mean?
He's in control.
Hmm?
God's in control of the whole situation.
God's in control. What was in the cup? Jeremiah told them, took a cup around to the nation, said, you got to drink of this. You don't have any choice. It's filled with abomination and drunkenness and wickedness.
Idols.
Go to Revelation 17.